Hey, what's up guys? My name is Evan Ulbricht and today we're going to be doing a Canon R5 versus my iPhone 11 challenge. So yesterday I went out and took around 10 photos with each camera, and today I'm going to be comparing those photos and kind of seeing if you guys can tell the difference, and then at the end I'll show you guys which photos are which. So let's get started. So the first 3 photos I took in portrait mode for my phone, and then I took on low aperture for my camera. So I kind of wanted to see the difference between if you could tell if there was a big difference, or if actually the camera looked pretty similar to the phone. So these first photo there's a pretty big difference. You can tell right away because none of these photos are edited, because I didn't want to edit these photos or else it would give a big unfair advantage to the camera, obviously, because it shoots in RAW instead of the iPhone. So this first shot, I feel like it's pretty obvious to any photographer, and obviously the one in the right is for the Canon, and I'll put that on the top of the screen as well. But you could tell pretty easily with that, but I think that's one of the photos where it's kind of the biggest difference. But let's go into the next photo. So for the second photo, I feel like this is way closer and actually kind of hard to tell. So I'm gonna keep switching this photos on here so like it's harder for you guys to tell. But for this one, I mean, I don't know. Can you guys tell the difference between which one is which? And I know one of them has a softer background, but I mean, overall, it's really not bad. And actually in the iPhone photo, so you can see on the right is the iPhone photo, there is actually messed up on the portrait mode because one of the leaves is blurry because it thought it was the part of the background. So that's a pretty big mistake, which I don't know. I did not think it would make a mistake like that. But overall, it's not a bad photo from an iPhone. Still pretty close, not gonna lie. That's probably one of the best ones. So for the third one is the last close-up, and it's of a sunflower. And these, you could definitely tell pretty close, and right away you can tell just which one's kind of blander, and also which one is just the background is just so much softer. And yeah, the one on the right is shot with Canon and the one on the left is shot with iPhone. And you can tell right away just with shadows and the colors and lighting, there's a pretty big difference, especially when you're getting close up to bright colors like the yellows and greens. And so for these next photos, this next one is actually one of my favorites. Super cool. I actually did a fun edit, and I'll show you guys right here, and kind of like a film edit, and I thought that looked really cool. But so for these photos, actually these 2 photos, I thought the iPhone didn't do a bad job, but you can tell right away that the colors are very different because the iPhone is adjusting, whereas the Canon, obviously I'm in manual, so it's doing what I want it to, so it definitely gives it a more flatter look, but then you can edit it to make it kind of whatever you want. So yeah, the one on the right is the Canon and the one on the left is the iPhone. And one thing I found out is that the iPhone kind of like makes everything a lot brighter than it is. Like the sky was not that blue, but it kind of made it pop out more, which is pretty surprising actually, because I did not think that the iPhone would do that. I thought my Canon would do that more. But let's go on to the next photo. So for the next photo, this one's actually really close too. I actually couldn't even tell the difference when I was looking at these normally. And I actually thought my Canon was the one that was the iPhone. So if you guys can take a look and kind of try to figure out which one you guys think is which. And obviously when you like zoom in and stuff, obviously the Canon one's gonna be a lot sharper just because it's 50 megapixels, so it's gonna be a lot sharper. But the iPhone overall, if you're looking at it just a normal photo, you really can't tell the difference on this photo. And the lighting is definitely a little bit darker on the iPhone, so the iPhone is the right. And you can tell it adjusts for light differently than the Canon, because I'm automatically doing that in manual, and I'm kind of doing whatever I want with that. And the iPhone is obviously all automatic, so it automatically adjusts, and didn't do a bad job on this one. And this one's shot in portrait too, so I think it did a great job. And if you guys got that right, then tell us in the comments, because that's pretty impressive. All right, so for my next photo, I think this is a really close one too. and you can see that one is a little underexposed, and then one is a little, it looks like oversaturated, which I think, so that the oversaturated one is the iPhone, and the underexposed one is from my Canon. So you can see that the iPhone really likes to get high saturation because the greens and the blues are really bright here. Where on my Canon, it's a little oversaturated, so that would bring some colors if I brought that down. But overall, still pretty close. And I think that overall, the iPhone one's better just out of the camera. But obviously, if I edited it, then the Canon one would look a lot better. But yeah, the iPhone's actually doing pretty well. So for my next one is kind of just a little street sign, and this one's a really fun one and definitely hard to tell. I mean, you cannot tell just looking at these photos really which one is which. Like I'm not really sure. They look almost exactly the same and you can't tell by just looking at them normally. But obviously when you zoom in and look at the colors, the one on the right is the iPhone. As you can see, it keeps adjusting to the sky and makes it super saturated, which is pretty interesting, and I've never noticed that before this. And the Canon one, obviously it's however I want to saturate it, so I try to make it, I wanted to make the colors kind of just normal, and I wanted to make sure that the lighting was right on the pole, but then on the background it was a little oversaturated, which obviously in Lightroom, you can turn that down and then make it more saturated in the background. But still a pretty close one. So for my next one, you can tell right away from kind of what I was saying before with how the iPhone adjusts for light better. So you can see how, since I'm in manual, I'm kind of exposing it how I want. So the photo to the right is from my Canon, and the photo to the left is from the iPhone. So on the left, you can see that the sky is super dark, and it's kind of a darker tone, whereas my Canon, I made it kind of a lighter tone. And this is just because I know when I take this to Lightroom, I can kind of do whatever I want from this. Whereas in the iPhone one, it just looks kind of dark, which obviously you can lighten up in Lightroom too, but it just looks really kind of oversaturated and like high contrast, which is just weird to see how the iPhone edits differently. And I've kind of never seen that before, so it's cool to see how the iPhone is adjusting to light versus my Canon and how I like to see it. And so for the next one, it's kind of the same thing. So on the right is my Canon, and on the left is the iPhone. And obviously on the right, you can see with the Canon R5, it's super sharp, a super good looking photo. And on the left, it's kind of darker and then more saturated. And you see this with almost every photo that I've taken, is that it's kind of a darker tone and more saturated, which is super interesting because personally I thought since it's all like automatic, I thought it would be kind of a lighter photo, but I've also never tested it taking like more landscape-ish type photos and things like that. So definitely interesting to see how it adjusts, and definitely cool to see how it works and to see kind of the difference between the R5 and the iPhone. And for the last photo, it's actually a super close comparison on this one. So I'm not sure if you guys can tell right away which one's which, but after a couple seconds, you can tell that the sky is brighter on the right one, which is the iPhone. And you can tell that it kind of, it's pretty impressive actually, because it seems like it takes the highlights down and then makes it more saturated doing in auto, which is super cool. And it has a kind of bluish tint to it, whereas you look at the left one, it's more yellow and the sky is kind of blown out, which is easy to fix in Lightroom, but it's kind of blown out and more yellowish, where in the right one, the iPhone one, is more of a bluish tint, and then the sky is kind of darker and more blue, which I think is super cool just to see this kind of comparison. And maybe I'll make another video talking about or taking these photos again and then kind of editing them and see how far I can edit an iPhone photo versus a Canon photo or RAW photo, because RAW photos have a lot more that you can move with and a lot more that you can edit, which is super cool. So that's kind of all I have for the video. So thanks for watching the video. This was super fun to make, And I hope you guys had fun kind of seeing which one is which and kind of learning about the Canon R5 and the iPhone. So a lot of fun, and thanks for watching. See you next video. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more videos like this. See you next video.